So welcome to the Ep151 Construction Podcast, and we have Cara Woodhouse with us. Welcome, Cara.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. I'm excited to have you on. So Kara's the principal of Cara Woodhouse Interiors, and I have to say, we've been Instagram friends for quite some time, for a couple of years now through Instagram, and I've taken note of a lot of the stuff you post and have done like for a long time, and especially that bedroom. You had done that bedroom in the Hamptons. I think the Hampton Holiday House, which is one of my all-time favorites. I've seen recirculated all through Instagram, and
Thank
so again, I think not that put you on the mark. You've had a lot of things put you on the mark up until now.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. I think it's really unique. Your style is super unique. So again, I know we'll have your social media and everything tagged for everyone listening to go follow you. How do you feel that it's impacted your design, having lived in LA, London, now New York, in these amazing, design cities?
So, yeah, travel and living and experiencing different places, you get exposed to different cultures and ways of living, and it all has an impact. I always say traveling is like one of the number one things that inspires me. We just actually came back from Florence, Italy, a few weeks ago, and so inspired by more, I want to say, like exterior, the way that they do things there. And also, we stayed at a hotel, and this is something that inspired me that I think needs to be brought to the US, is eating at a restaurant and a woman has a bag or a purse or something, and they see you and they come run over and put a stool there for you to put your bag down, which I thought was like,
Oh, that's amazing.
unbelievable. I was like, and it's like such a simple thing. You could have like a little table or a little stool. I was like, this needs to be brought to the US. Like this needs to be done. The attention to detail of how they live and everything. I pick that up everywhere I go. Everywhere I travel, everywhere I experience different beautiful hotels and places, it has such an impact on my designs for sure.
So let me ask you this, because one of the common themes whenever I interview architects and designers is, yes, so much inspiration comes from traveling, right? You're in these cities and these hotels, restaurants. Are there certain things you're looking for? You mentioned the purse is a great example that, how for women, as they're carrying their bag, they come in and sit down. It's like, do I hang it? Do I put it at my feet? Do I hang it behind me on the chair? And so you mentioned the stool. So are you looking for like certain design elements that you may implement? Maybe it's a unique bathroom or unique,
Yeah.
like lobby area.
100%. It's so different, and things that catch my eye are, different in different places. You know, for sure. And I think also part of design, which it's not just visual, it's also functional. So I'm all about that, how you live, how you experience a space, and all the comforts that go into a space and how you live. Like that's a comfort, right? Having someone bring that for you, and how do you feel inside your space and use it is like the biggest part of like my design, which I think you don't really get obviously from a photo, but people who are in spaces that I design, and my husband says this too all the time, when people walk into our newly renovated and designed house that I just finished, he's like, Cara, he's like, you have to hear the noises that come out of people. Like they actually just make noises. They're like, like, they're just like making all these like noises and telling you how they feel in a space. And particularly also that pink bedroom that I did in Hamptons, it's so funny. I was like, just kind of standing off on the wall in that room, and like some people knew that I was there and some didn't. And I just loved listening in to what people said, like the feedback. And we had to come up with themes, and mine was like dream. That was like my whole, make it like really ethereal and dreamy. And literally everybody was like, this is so dreamy. I feel so safe and warm. I don't want to leave. Like, like hearing noises and things come out of people. So yeah, going back to the travel, I'm going to bring it back. But so yeah, like how you experience a space and how, or, just where you are, your environment around you. I definitely pay so much attention to that. But when I'm traveling, it could be anything from, seeing a pattern on a marble floor inside a cathedral to a door, or seeing the use of marble in Italy. We stayed at this chateau for a friend's wedding there, and like it was literally, and I'm obsessed with stone and marble. That's like something that I don't know is like very me, but noticing all these sinks that are just carved, massive, massive sinks carved out of marble, and the shapes and the things, that definitely inspires me, as well as lifestyle, living, different cultures of how people, function as humans, and it's different everywhere.
So let me ask you this. Do you find, you mentioned the functionality, right, of a space and design, like how important that is. Are there elements of maybe the service side, as you've stayed at different hotels, maybe their customer service or how they treat you? Have you implemented, maybe that mentality or methodology, like as you communicate with clients and, your brand? Because I'm sure, the personalities vary from your clientele.
Yeah.
And so that can be a little bit different how you communicate with them.
Well, yes and no. As far as like communicating, I have like so much attention to detail. So I, down to where like a light switch is on the wall, or what should be electrified, shades, curtains, next to your bedside, you want to easily plug in a phone, things like this, kitchens, how they function. Some people are like, connoisseurs at cooking and the kitchen, and that's their thing. So every detail in every space needs to get attention, like living in a hotel. And there's ranges of hotels, right? Like there's like the basics, and then there's like the luxury. So, I'm definitely more the luxury, making everything very unique and unique experience for every one of my clients, because not everybody lives the same. So, and sometimes I bring things up to clients, like all the options that there are, and they're like, oh, like I didn't even know that that's a thing. I didn't know that that's available. So I like to kind of educate them with what's out there, all the possibilities, and how to make your living experience in your home functional, luxurious, and comfortable, and just like the ultimate living situation, like within your home.
I love those words you said, functional, comfortable, luxurious,
Yeah.
right? And if you can implement the design, right, the client's going to be super happy,
Yeah.
At the end. And what's unique about your style, Cara, like if anyone, again, I'm fascinated by everything you post on Instagram. I think it's so unique. Like I've never seen a profile such as yours. So clientele, I'm sure, come to you, because you have this very, I shouldn't say unique style, but are all the clients, are they open to you to say, hey, Cara, like the pink bedroom, the dreamy style, we're open to that? Do you ever have clients, push back maybe on a different style, or how do you, what's the versatility you're seeing from the demand?
So this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't know about me, is that I've been in this industry for a little over 25 years, and I have evolved through my career. So in the very beginning of my career, I actually designed the most traditional homes you've ever seen, shopping at Sotheby's and Christie's and fine antiques. And I'm very well versed on time periods, historical styles, all of that. And as my career has grown and evolved, I kind of transitioned into different designs. So I really, I'm not a one-trick pony. I'm not one thing. My newer designs that people see, and what I'm drawn to now is what people see and what I put out there and what I enjoy designing. But no, I mean, I'm working on right now a historical home on this beautiful compound on the water. And it's, an amazing piece of history, this house. And we added an addition. We actually raised the house and put a whole new foundation to put a basement down below. And the husband of, my client, he's a traditionalist and loves traditional, and his wife is very modern. So I am definitely marrying the two and putting it together, but it's not my usual design, but it's going to be incredible. And I'm so excited about it. I think every client is in like such an individual, their projects, the architecture, the location where it is. I think all these things really depict what is, what inspires the design. And, I'm not pushy with my design, like how I design. I don't push clients to do things that they're uncomfortable with. And and I do get pushback on things, but I'll explain why. There's like always a reason, and explain why, I don't suggest it, or I do suggest it, because some people are just like, no, that's not happening. I would never treat a client like that, and always kind of give them my knowledge and reasoning for why I'm suggesting things. And that's why they hire me, to give my opinion and my professionalism and my experience and all those things. So, but no, I do everything, but, I do have fun with like the style of the pink bedrooms and doing kinds of, I just can't, someone was like, what's your style? I'm like, whimsical. I don't know. Like, I don't even know. People are like, what's your style? It is whimsical. It is funky and cool. I do try to be creative and create and be innovative and explore, how can we do this? How can we do this different? How can we make this, just like a cool piece? It's art,
Well, what I love that you said, and you said this early on, Kara, is that you mentioned that, even in your career, right, there's a lot of education. Like, you understand time periods, you understand styles, right, and how that's evolved. And having lived in these different cities, going to Europe, where you have these very old historical buildings, and a lot of them have been modernized now, from exterior to interior. And so the advantage, and I found as a builder, like some of the best relationships I have with designers such as yourself, that are really create these masterpieces, are designers that really understand construction. Like you said, to be involved in an old house that's going to have new foundation and addition. I mean, this is not easy stuff. It's super complicated. So to understand that aspect, I mean, it just shows that, no one's an overnight success, especially in the design construction world. And so it just shows, I mean, there's speak to maybe just how that's evolving, the education, understanding just building in general, and how that, applies to design, because I would imagine that makes you a better resource for your clients as well.
100%. I mean, I always say, and like, a lot of my employees that come on with me and on my team, I think school and going to design school and learning all the programs and all of, the technical things, it's a foundation, but really experience is on-job experience. It's the best experience you'll ever have, working for good people and being exposed to all these things. But, construction, in the beginning of my career, I was very overwhelmed by it, and I was like, I couldn't even like wrap my head around it. It was like, I was like, I'm like, it was like a lot. And as the years have gone by, actually, I love the architecture. I love construction. I love a job site. And really working through as a team with, I've been able to work with some incredible architects and builders and contractors that, I'm so interested. And I always say, like, if I had the time, I would get my hands dirty and want to like be on a job site and like lay tile down and like make stuff, because I just think it's like fascinating that, the craftsmanship and all the details and like really understanding it and learning it. Such a huge span of knowledge over my career that I've learned. And, now I really only take on projects that involve either, from the ground up or major gut renovations, because I just feel like from a design standpoint, I feel like it's so incredible to have the vision from the beginning with a team and creating the home and the design, like doing it as a whole is just, I don't know, it's so rewarding seeing that, and being part of that. So, and we do a lot of project management, like for, overseeing the construction, architects. I even shop with clients for properties, and good architects and builders and all of that. Was so involved in it.
I love that. I mean, you mentioned this early on in the conversation when you went to Italy and you were over there, that you said, you were paying a lot of attention to the exteriors, right? Exteriors of these buildings and the design. And I think it was Florence, right? You were just at. And so, how involved, and you kind of alluded to this, from a project management side, I would imagine, especially with the expertise and skill set and education you have now, that clients are leaning on you a lot more to say, hey, Cara, we want to have you involved in the exterior. The architect may drive it, but let's have you bring your input. And, what do you think? Right?
Yes, 100%. And I always tell clients this, that I feel like a lot of architects, and not to, say that they're one thing, but a lot of them that I've worked with kind of view space from like the outside in. And I always say a designer really looks at the space from the inside out, and all the details. And I feel like I probably should have been an architect. And I was actually the beginning of my career, I was contemplating, going after design school, going to get my architectural degree. But I didn't. But we do a lot of the plans and submit them to architects. We do all the elevations. We don't do construction drawings, but we work out that on site sometimes with builders, like how to kind of maneuver things on site when things have to change. But yeah, I mean, I'm very involved in it. We do like pretty much all the layouts and everything and submit them to architects and work as a team with them. Yeah.
So I think what's fascinating about you, Cara, is that, one thing is, as we're speaking about here, just a career path of education as you become, build your name and reputation in design. But there's another level here. And you mentioned earlier, you're like, hey, I've always wanted to create stuff or build stuff or, install tile. But here you are now with essentially your own furniture line, right? You're working with well-known companies like products, designing your own products, vanity stuff. Speak to that, just, taking that career to the next level. How do these relationships get kicked off with these vendors where now they want to look at you to collaborate and start building a product line?
So, I feel I'm like so humbled, like, that my career is where it is. And I have all this exposure and leverage with my social media and all those things. And I do not take that for granted for a second. So yeah, I mean, I am a creator. Originally, before I even went to school, I was an artist. I wanted to be a fine artist. And I was discouraged by my parents, who told me I was going to be a struggling, starving artist. So I had to find my path another way. So I definitely consider myself to be an artist. In all interior designers, anything in creative, you are an artist of some sort. And I love designing product. I had a jewelry business too a long time ago. I did a jewelry collaboration, a year ago. And, it's just an outlet for me to be creative because it's literally my joy. I love what I do. I love creating. I see things, I envision things. And, I've been lucky enough to do these amazing collaborations. I have more coming, which I'm like so excited to be part of that and continue like doing that. It's just like another sector of my design career,
So how does that door open when you think about just your, evolution in design, in architecture, how well involved you are, but then, you work with brands and products. And of course, the next level is the designers building these relationships with vendors and having your own accounts and trade accounts and, that versatility and bandwidth to have all these different products offered to your customers. And then the knowledge of where to find different finishes all throughout the country and world. How does it get to that level where now it's like, now there's co-collaboration, that door's open where it's like, okay, Cara, maybe you've been purchasing from us. We love your work. We actually want you to design the piece, right? That's the Cara Woodhouse piece.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mixture. Some of the collaborations, I reached out. I had my team reach out and say, we would love to do something with you. And then some others randomly have reached out, or they have been, I've been working with people and they're like, we want to do something with you. It's really been like a very somewhat like organic way of working, and now I'm like, I also have an amazing PR team. I also have somebody who handles licensing deals and all the influencer stuff for me, which is amazing. And now it's come to the point they're like, put together a list, like who are your top, 5, 10, whatever people that you would like to do something. But I think there's just so much that I could do. There's just so much time in a day. I am busy, first and foremost is my interior design business. And I feel like this is just kind of like the icing on the cake. And it's like a fun project for me to be creative, but I am definitely selective and want to do kind of limited amounts of it right now. That could change, but it's like what inspires me or what I feel I want to put out in the market. And, it's kind of been like that.
So what made you choose to go on Instagram? I know now you've had tremendous success. I think now you're over 600,000 followers, Speak to that growth. I mean, did you ever imagine it would take off in the manner it did?
No, I definitely did not. I know it's really interesting. So I've had a couple of business partners like through my career. I've had several different design firms. And when my last business partner and I split up in 2016, she wanted Instagram and I actually wanted House at the time, which like no one goes on House anymore. So I'm like, all right, you take the Instagram, I'll take House. And then I just, had to build it again. And luckily, my husband is like he's in advertising. He's a creative director. He just started his own agency, but he always gives me like little snippets of like advice all the time. And one of his biggest pieces of advice at the time when we split, he's like, you got to build your Instagram and like giving me like all these like suggestions. And I was like, all right, like when you give me advice, I'm like, I'm on it. It doesn't happen all the time, but like when you give it, take it and I'll roll with it. So really like, thanks to him, he kind of like pushed me. And then I got like really into it. And I felt like, being consistent and putting out there, people are like, how do you find things to post? Like I always say, I get like this feeling, it's almost like a buzz where I know it's like, that's amazing, and I just like want to put it out there. And that's, it's all from my gut and my feeling of, imagery and all of that. I handle all of the Instagram posts myself. It's all content coming from me. So yeah, that's how it kind of got rolling and I really stuck with it. I think you have to be consistent and you definitely have to engage and, it's grown.
So what other are you doing any other social media platforms besides Instagram?
This is like, now my husband's newest advice, he's like, you have to get on TikTok. It's like already almost over. Okay. Get on TikTok. And so I'm like, okay, meanwhile, I can't even like put reels together on Instagram. I'm like trying and I don't have time. It's like putting together productions. I know you're really good at putting together amazing content, especially like video content, but, no, I'm not. Like I have accounts, but no, it's not developed. It's not my Instagram, I'm on Pinterest, but it's like, I don't push it. I put a lot of time into Instagram, and that's like, yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You alluded to this. I mean, a lot of people are looking for, lack of a better word, maybe a shortcut to Instagram, right? Maybe how to beat the system or create this magic algorithm. And the reality is, as you mentioned, is consistency, right? Like you post every day.
Yep.
You're super consistent. You have great content. And that's the thing, good content, you engage. How has Instagram opened up, just different opportunities for you, whether it be the furniture line or just relationships in general, to expand your business?
So, yeah, I mean, well, one, I have like friends like you,
Right. We're on here.
Yeah. I think it's, for like so many things. I think it's definitely brought the design community together, which is amazing because I think there's like this old school mentality to design where it was so competitive and so secretive and like, no one shared any information. And now I feel like everyone's kind of like joined, like we're all in this together, and it's an amazing community, being friends with a lot of designers and peers. I've done also a lot of new upcoming designers. I do a lot of mentoring and give a lot of advice and share, from my experience, down to definitely, I was always a word of mouth. I always did very high-end residential design and commercial design, but it's now a different thing. People have seen my work on Instagram and they're contacting me for projects, and some amazing projects. So, that's definitely helped my business tons. And the collabs and the licensing deals and all those things, and also it's like a marketing tool. This is how people, working with influencers and people with large Instagrams, it's a new way of marketing. So all of those opportunities that I've had are amazing, which is also really, I think, a very fun part of it,
Yeah, well, it's funny because you mentioned the marketing. I think about it this way. I've found that, especially in the last year and a half, customers come to me, and before, many people are driven by the website, and the website's still important. You have to have a landing page, and SEO and Google and all that stuff is tied to it. But what's interesting is clients always come to me now and they're like, "Hey, Brad, who do you recommend, for designer architecture? What's your Instagram handle?" Right? That's what they, or I've had clients reach out and they're like, "Hey, I looked up so-and-so, but their Instagram's no good. Like, I don't want to use them." And just a funny thing is, like, on a small level, they're like, their photos are blurry, or like their posts, like they're not spelling right. They're not doing spell check and not correct punctuation. It's these little things that maybe we're not paying attention to, but the clients, they're looking at this stuff,
100%. 100%. Yeah, I agree.
And so what's interesting too, Cara, is you speak about just the collaboration, and construction is kind of funny this way. When I was young in my career, I found that there was a lot of resistance, right? People weren't willing to share, especially contractors, right? Like my competitors here, they're not willing to share information. And then Instagram opens up this huge channel, like where I'm networking with contractors specifically all over the country. They're like, "Hey, Brad, here's how we do things. I'm not a competitor." You build these friendships. Have you found value just in the designer side? Other designers saying, not trade secrets, but here's how I price. Here's how I do with these clients. Do you ever get to that level with some of your design community?
100%. Yeah, we've sent each other our contracts. There's like, this is the other thing too, is like, there's no standard fee structure for the interior design world. There's a fee structure for builders and construction. Mm-hmm. There's like a ball, it's like kind of in the range. There's like super high end, mid, and low, but like it's pretty much consistent. So in the interior design world, there is not really a standard of how people work. So it is definitely fascinating to see people's business models and how they're billing. There's also, war stories with clients and mishaps and how do you handle it? Has anyone experienced this? Down to, I'm doing a project in LA. Does anyone know, a good marble vendor or a receiving company or a contractor or whatever? Where should I go shopping? All those things that, everyone's just been super amazing, sharing, which is, it was unusual when I started out my career. That didn't happen. And I am like the biggest sharer. Like, you could ask me anything and I'll give it to you.
I love that. And it's funny. Do you ever worry when you talk about that? Because it's always fascinating to me when I speak to someone with your platform, right, Cara? And you're like, "Hey, I'll share anything." Where does that come from? Like, any fear of competition, any fear that people are going to steal your ideas or how you run your business?
I think, if someone wants to like copy my designs, I do think that that's the biggest form of flattery. I do. I think, like that it makes me feel like, wow, like someone thought that was a great idea and they're doing it. And I, as long as I do it first.
Yeah.
But no, but all kidding aside, this is my theory on it. I think that there's always enough business to go around for everybody. And I am at a point where I am definitely confident in my abilities and my designs that, like, you know, I don't feel like I'm in competition with people, and I support people in my industry. It should be that way, you know? Like, good for you. You got an amazing project and you're killing it. Like, that's amazing. It's like, it should be a motivator, not like a competition or jealousy between peers, you know? And if I could help, I would love to help. Why not? You know?
Yeah, and I'll give you some kudos here, Karis, that when I reach out to you, what's funny is that, like, even when I spoke to you, I mean, you have, and I would imagine that the confidence has come from this amazing career and experience, right, in education, and you've learned these things. Because when I reach out, you're like, yeah, I'm in, let's do it, and I don't need any questions, just go at it, you know, let's chat. And so that not everyone's that way. They're not so receptive, and I think those that are, it just speaks to your success because, you know, without, you know, catering to just maybe your lane, you know, by opening that up, it opens up other opportunities. I think a lot of people miss that collaboration can open up other opportunities, you know, and confidence isn't an ego. It's just, hey, I've built this brand, I've built this career, and now I'm willing to share. And, you know, I understand the value in these relationships down the road.
I agree. Yeah. I feel like I've always had this like weird confidence thing about me too, from like a young age. And I always like try to tell my kids, I'm like, I just, you know, like nothing's stopping you except for yourself when it comes to things. And I'm just like, you want to do something, like you go and you get it. Like very early in my career, I started my very first business, like probably not having enough experience in the design world. And I'm like, someone gave me this advice and I was like in high school who also did some like design work. And they were like, you fake it till you make it. Like you want it to happen, you make it happen. And, you know, people need to put themselves in that mindset that anything could be done. If you're passionate and you want it, you go get it, you know? So I don't know. And I think it's confidence, but it's also, I don't know. I just have like it's definitely like a drive that I've always had. It's just like innate.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny the term "fake it till you make it" because I've given that term a lot of thought too over the years. And what I've seen is that there is some, yeah, fake it till you make it. Maybe you're portraying something and you're not there. You're kind of building to that. But the reality is, you have a vision, right? You have a goal, whatever that may be, a vision board for some people, or you know where you want to take your company or career to that level. And the reality is, there's stepping stones.
Yeah.
So it's fake it till you make it. But if there's hard work, there's determination, there's networking, there's relationships. Yeah. And so you know where you want to be. You're going to build to that point, and you just have to keep doing it. And a lot of people just are afraid to take that
I think
plunge.
that's a lot of people have fear, you know, which I don't know.
So let me ask you this outside of fear. I mean, your career is interesting because, you know, now I see, you know, especially now with Instagram, House, you know, social media, TikTok, there is a resurgence, you know, and I'll speak to for construction, we're dealing with, you know, keep the craft alive. There's no trade schools anymore in high school. Everyone's pushed like you have to go to college and get this 4-year degree. And now with construction, I see a younger generation that's enthused about the trades. They see like stuff we're posting and clients are doing in these projects, and they're like, you know, these how-to videos on everything from trim carpentry to framing to anything, and people are getting engaged again. And for design, I've seen that. But years ago, before social media, you know, there's a lot of designers that said, I didn't even know I could make money doing this, right? Being a creator. I mean, how did you know career path wise, this was what you wanted to do, you know, from such a young age?
I didn't. I kind of found my path. So like I said, I wanted to be a fine artist. I was a sculptor when I was younger, and I was very into sculpting. I won awards for it, and I was deterred. So I was like, all right, what's next? Like design school, I'll go to, you know, fashion, because I was like, I love fashion. And I went to FIT, and like half a semester in, I was like, this is not what I want to do with my life. I was miserable. And I was like, I told my parents, I was like, I am quitting school. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. And they were like freaking out. What do you mean? I was like, I can't do this. I hate it. I'm going to get a job in the garment center. This is what I told them in New York, and they were freaking out. Like if my kid told me that, I'd be like, oh my God, what's happening? And tortured them. And believe it or not, a family member, an aunt of mine who lived in the city, she's like, Cara, she's like, you should go look at this school, New York School of Interior Design. She's like, you always, were like designing your parents' house and your room. You have such good style. Like I could see you like having a fit. So like with this school. So I was like, interesting. So I'm like, okay, I think my parents definitely were like, yeah, you need to like get back into school and, get some kind of education going. And it was, I don't know, I guess it was just fate and all the things. And I got in, I literally whipped together a portfolio and interviewed. I got in, and the second, like, I walked into my first class, I was like, it was like this holy moment. It was like, and, it just all aligned for me. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. And I knew it, like, right away. I was at every class and I geeked out on it completely. I had like amazing grades. I was up all night working all the time on my projects. It was like I was so passionate about it, as soon as I found it, and haven't stopped since, basically. So that's the beginning of how I got aligned with working in this industry.
So after college, after you did interior design school, you mentioned that you thought about going into architecture school, possibly. You ended up not doing that. Why did you not end up going to architecture school?
I did not, because I had a really amazing opportunity to work for an incredible design firm. They were like a top 100 AD firm, and it was like, a really amazing opportunity. So I started my career, and then, it just like took off and went, and I haven't stopped since. And I never went back to school, but I yeah.
But, yeah, but you have the experience. I mean, you've been working with architects, and now you're involved in the entire design, to this day. So you mentioned also back in 2016 when you had a partner, you mentioned you had some other partnerships, difficulties of having a partner, understanding, because it's one thing to be extremely talented in design and construction, but it's another thing to run your business, which is like can be really difficult. Cash flow, people, hiring,
Totally.
right? All the things we balance. How has that made an impact? Just the business sense of running a design firm.
So, believe it or not, I love the business side of my business too, and I also find it very creative. If that's like a thing, to be creative in business, I do. I love it. I love all of it, how it's run, streamlining, the accounting part, all of it, the marketing part that goes into it, I'm very into. And yeah, I never thought, if you told me as like my young, like 20-year-old self that I would love business, I would say you're nuts, you're crazy. What? But yeah, I mean, it's something that I got thrown into starting my first business, and I don't have any business background, but I learned it's the same thing as like, on-job experience. You have to put it together, and I wanted it and I made it happen, and have learned, and thank God have surrounded myself with like amazing people, from accountant, bookkeeper, lawyer, business coaches, all sorts of sources, so yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the creative side of business, and it's one thing. This is something I give a lot of thought. Is that as a builder, and I think design can relate to this. A lot of our businesses, it's a fee business, right? So whether you're cost plus or lump sum, or as a designer, you're building hourly or per square foot, like there's a fee associated with the service that we're providing, right? And the ownership and management. But again, that can fluctuate, right? Market can dictate certain things, opportunity, clientele, the brand we built. And so there's always, well, how can we still be in our lane, but be versatile, right? How can we create revenue streams? And this is what you alluded to earlier in the conversation, that the creativity I'd imagine is, okay, I have my brand as a designer, but now we're working with manufacturers and creating product lines and licensing deals and social media opportunities. And so it's just, I would imagine that energizes you to see all these different aspects that can now help build the brand together.
100%. Like that, it's not just one thing. It's so multifaceted, like you said. And it's exciting. It excites me, and like, I don't know. I love being creative with different opportunities too. Like, how can I always think of things like, why does everything have to be like standard ways? So like, I'm always thinking like a business opportunity or something like, let's do something that's like, isn't in like the regular lane with everyone. Like, let's veer off, let's explore, let's see, it's how I conduct in business sometimes with, trying to be creative with it as well as design, So,
any solutions on hiring, because that seems to be a constant challenge. Many people are having it in every industry. So what's your secret to success with hiring?
I mean, it definitely is. I would say that is probably the hardest aspect of our business, right? Is you could hire people, but you want to hire good people. And that is what is very hard to come by. It's a tough one. There really is no exact answer for that. And I wish that there was, because I would want to know. But I'm actually excited. We just hired somebody. Thank God we found a good one. We just hired another senior designer who's starting on Monday. So I'm excited about that. But it's like very rare, And one thing that I do always is I trial people before they're hired, because I think it's super important to see them. Because in my career, sometimes people give the most amazing interviews and you're like rock star, and then you get them in the office and to work and you're just like, no, this isn't cutting it. This is not, what they said they were. And, some people could talk very well, but then when they just can't perform. And I found the opposite. Some people don't interview great, but you go off your instinct and your gut and you get them in and they're amazing. So I definitely trial for several days, if not a week, and see them in action, throw them all different, tasks to work on to see that they could handle things. And and I always say, I think it takes like 3 months for people to really acclimate to how you work, how you function, to kind of like get on board with your office. And I give them that. And then past that point, if it's still not, cutting it, I, sometimes have to let people go, which is unfortunate. But it's been a struggle because with COVID and this industry is so busy. All of us have gone through like our craziest, most amazing time that, I'm so grateful for it too. But so everyone, all the good people are snatched up, and there's, and it's hard to find them because they're all hired. But so when you find someone good, you got to hold on to them and you have to treat them very well and all those things.
It's interesting you say that, because when I think about the training aspect, right? Continuing education is so important. You mentioned this for design. I know for construction, what tends to happen, at least, as I apply it to my industry or for my company specifically, is I have my superintendents that are out there running these projects, and they're all having different experiences. They're having different pitfalls, or whether they be mistakes or successes, and not all of the information is always transpired with everybody, right? And so we try to have these production meetings together. And where I'm going is that what I have is my senior construction manager, who's very skilled and versed in construction. Like, he's created, almost like you're in high school again, he creates this test, right? And there's like 30 questions. And so we'll sit in the production meeting, we hand out this paperwork, and it's just, okay, on this client's project, what is the finished grade, at the finished floor? Okay, on this house, what is the depth of the footing on the first lift, the retaining walls. And so we sit there and we watch these guys, and it's not to compare them to each other, but they have to go through the plans and find this information. And what we found is that by doing this, it really helps them advance, right? To read plans, understand the details of construction, which is really important. And we've applied this to the hiring process, that now instead of like me just interviewing, right? Because this is, as you mentioned, it's hard because people can say something on a resume, but when they come in, I'll have them go in the field with my director of operations and my senior construction manager, and they almost take the same quiz, or they'll walk them through a house and say,
Right.
hey, what do you see? And what you find you get the right people, because it's one thing to say, I know the software, I've been in construction, but have you really managed? Do you really know the details? Because and more importantly, I mean, I think about the culture side, that we can teach these things, right? But do they have the personality? Do they have the candor? Do they have the client? The personality to get along with clients, who can be difficult. It's a very routine process.
Definitely. I think personality is definitely a big part of it too. For sure.
Yeah, because in your side, how the personality, I look at the company culture side, personality is such a big component, because especially in design, it's so personal. I mean, you mentioned, I've heard this said, finishes don't have feelings. You're going to give your opinion, your expertise, but they may take it, they may not. You're not going to be really pushy, but you still have to learn that balance and how to deal with tough situations that come up in the design business.
100%, and they come up all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's always right.
Now more than ever.
But yeah, I mean, all those things are so important. It's just, finding the perfect mixture, and someone that's perfect for you might not be perfect for me, and vice versa, right? Because we all work differently.
So what do you find most rewarding? Yeah, what do you find most rewarding about owning your own company?
The most rewarding part is that, I mean, I would just say ultimate freedom, right? And I think that goes across the board. Freedom to hire clients, bring on clients that I want, work with the people that I want, so I can enjoy more what I'm doing. I've always been a person that kind of beats my own drum. So working for someone else is definitely not the greatest thing for me. Being told what to do, although I could follow a task, but I was a very good employee when I did work for people. But it's just the ultimate freedom of everything, right? Putting out what I want out there, working with vendors and things, and just it's me. I make it or break it, right? So
it's interesting because I've often thought about this, because people talk about owning your own business, and you and I both know there's so much stress and anxiety that comes from owning your business, and you're always constantly thinking about where's the next sale, where business development and the cash flow, the complications that could come up. You mentioned having a legal team. I mean, we have to, unfortunately, because things arise rather from so many different avenues of what we do. But what I thought was interesting, because maybe this is the definition of success, that when you say, well, are you successful? Well, success to you may be different for me. I mean, for some people it's time, some people it's personal wealth, but I think more than anything, it's options, right? And, to your point that you said that you have the flexibility and options. When I was early in my career working for another contractor, it was really tough working in pre-construction and estimating, because there'd be someone that I want to give the job to that's worked hard and earned it. And then for political reasons or relationships, the owner would say, nope, we're hiring someone. So you're okay, well, so much for building this. But as an owner, you have that flexibility to say, no, this is how we're going to run our business. This is how we're going to do this. And so I love the option that, all of us are trying to create options. And I think that's the easiest way to define success, is when you have options.
I think so. For sure. I think so. I do. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely also obviously the stresses, there's highs and lows with everything, but it's all mine. So there's nothing better than that, right? To say that it's yours, and, to see what you created, or, all of it.
Well, how do you find balance? Because, I mean, it's not like you just have your design business, Cara. I mean, from family life to everything else, how do you find balance?
Oh, God. I'm the type of person that functions better when I have 5,000 things on my plate versus one. you know, like that's just like the more I have, the better I run. Um, I do, thank God I have an incredible team supporting me, and it's taken me a long time to be able to like be a bit less of a control freak over things and really trusting and having these amazing people that I've kind of groomed, in my style, my way of working and all those things. So like that's been such an amazing thing. But I do, and I try, like in my office, unless there's like a crazy meeting that we're going for, I think also, going through the pandemic and everything, balance, right? Everyone was like, oh, like working from home and all these things. And, I realize that for myself and want that also for people who work for me to feel good about coming into work and feeling a balance of life. And, some of my employees are full-time remote, some are hybrid, and some are full-time in my office. But I don't know. I just think that balance, I try to cut myself off at like the end of the day at a reasonable time so then I could go and be with my husband, be with my children. I try to, when I can squeeze in trips and family time and, all of that. And everyone's like my clients are understanding and great because, they want to do the same things and you just make it happen, you just make it happen.
So do you ever, and then maybe this goes back to the hiring side, do you ever find any pushback or challenges, as you mentioned, where some of your staff is full-time remote, some of them are hybrids, and some are in the office? Do you ever fight that comparison between them, or how have you dealt
No,
just with that communication?
there's never been a fight or issue with that, you know? So thank God.
And that's really good. Yeah, I know. It just shows that you set an amazing business where
Yeah.
you can kind of have these different,
Yeah.
roles, if you will. And I would, system wise, like, what are you doing system wise to organize, job leads to actual jobs in production, to manage? Do we have to hire, where are we at, to make sure everyone's not too busy, how's that
Well,
structure running?
that's all a work in progress because we are so busy, and it is hard to find people. But yeah, I mean, I only take on a certain amount of work, like per year of what I could handle. I know what I could handle and what my team could handle. And anything more than that, I mean, I do turn jobs down a lot. Like over the past year, I've turned a lot of work down because we were at capacity and there's just so many hours in the day and so much work that we could take on, and had to, it sucked that I had to push work away, but I did. And I will, continuously if I have too much on my plate. So I can still have balance and that, I'm not killing people that are working for me. We have a pretty well run machine, in our office. It's like a well-oiled machine. As far as like the programs and things that we use and how we function and work on projects. Yeah, I mean, again, I think being in this career for as long as I have been, it's kind of, we've streamlined it to work. I've been through a lot of learning lessons and process through the years to really know how to gauge things and, how my office functions best.
Well, it's interesting because, not to divert here, but one thing I had to ask you about, because I asked you about the product line, but your press, the amount of press you've had, Cara, is out of this world. And just, there's too many to name, but I mean, from Forbes to Modern Luxury Deluxe to House Beautiful, Veranda, Domino, right? Vogue, GQ. I mean, your plethora of publications and editorials, it just is a testament to the business you built, right? Your design acumen, the education, the time behind it. Again, how have these opportunities opened up, from the press side where people are like, Cara, we need to speak, we need to publish, these amazing designs that you're doing?
That's also a mixed bag. Everything's a mixed bag. Before I hired PR to help me out. Either I did some reaching out, so people knew who I was if they didn't know already. And a friend of mine who's a photographer, she was like, this is years and years ago. She's like, Cara, she's like, buy all the magazines you want to be in and look at all the editors, and it's all public information. You could get their emails and just send them a press kit and, like get on their radar. And I was like, really? I'm like, you could do that? And she's like, yes. So we did. And that's, how a few things got started, being able to do that and put my name there. I think also like going to different events and making sure you support magazines, and get on those guest lists and do some networking and be out there so people know your face, they know your name. And now, fortunate enough, I have PR that is supporting and helping me and getting me a lot more press, But again, it's all been this like journey, this gradual build up journey. It definitely did not happen overnight.
So for people that are aspiring to be Cara Woodhouse, whether they're a builder, architect, designer, without divulging your press kit, like everything that entails, just simple things like if I were to put together a press kit, what should that include? How's that formatted? Just like a little basic.
A photo of you so people know who you are, and basically like a small like profile of who you are, what you do, and some imagery of your work, like your best work. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so how long have you been working with your PR firm?
Recently, I was working with a PR firm that we've recently parted ways, and I'm now working with a new PR firm, which is very brand new. We're only like a few weeks in, and luckily they've got me some stuff already going. And yeah, so, but I've been working with PR for over the past, I want to say 3 years. Like 2.5 years.
That's amazing. And so, and this is one of those things. I know it's a fine line. Any business starting out, they may not financially be in a position to hire a PR firm, but value wise, I mean, you've attested to it on this podcast, as I would imagine there's been a cost, but you've seen the value in the upside.
Definitely. I think I know it's a expense that not everybody can afford, also being new in the industry. I couldn't afford it really when I was starting out. So I not, living in this kind of place where like, just get PR, but you can get PR yourself. Like I did it, in the beginning, and part of PR is also social media and, putting yourself out there. I also have had magazines reach out to me and say, listen, like I'm an editor. If you have any work, send me. I want to see, try to get a meeting with an editor. Go get out there. You want to be in a magazine? Make it happen. Like sitting back on your sofa in your living room doing nothing is not going to get you inside a door. I think, if it's something you want, go after it. There's ways that you could do it without PR, without hiring someone, So I actually, Jen Talbot, who's another designer, we did a whole talk about this because she also she doesn't have a PR team, and all of her features and everything she's gotten on her own. So it's something that could be done for sure.
I love that, because the reality is, Cara, I mean, it's easy to sit behind and look at like this amazing list you have of publications and editorials you've had. But as you mentioned, these don't come by happenstance, right? Like you're being aggressive, you're pursuing these opportunities, and so many of us sit in our little box waiting for it to happen, but it never will. We have to make that effort ourselves. So
you make that happen.
You have to do it.
What do I do? Like relax. No, I mean, my biggest joy is I have a very close-knit family. I'm like very lucky that all my best friends are my siblings and their significant others, and we're always like hanging out and doing stuff together. I love to travel, and my kids are like my biggest joy. My husband, obviously, but I'm pretty chill. Like as I have all this stuff on my plate and I'm always going and doing work and it is such like a massive part of my life. I'm like a very laid back, chill person when it comes to like my downtime. I'm definitely not like, I'm not the adventurer. I'm not like skydiving
Okay.
and like, I don't know, like and my husband and we both have fears of like, being in deep bodies of water and heights. So, we're not that, our adventure is in like travel and exploring kind of like that. And just like, yeah, just like chilling out.
I love it.
Well,
So
I'm in the
and
mix
exciting.
of coming out with a book. We're like in our outline phase right now.
Wow.
So yeah, so yeah, I'm very
That's
excited.
really big news,
And
actually.
it's not just like a pretty tabletop book. It is going to be like meaty information as well as pretty, but really just I'm excited about it. So that's on the horizon. I'm coming out with a rug collection with rug art. They're in New York. So that's going to be coming out in the fall. And some other fun, exciting things coming on the horizon. There's, lots of stuff going on. But yeah.
Well, you've been amazing, Karen. And I'm excited to follow along your journey. I mean, you've had some amazing success, and it's well deserved. And for those listening,
So
where can
my
our listeners
Instagram
find you?
obviously is like the best spot to see what's going on. It's at Cara Woodhouse Interiors. I also have an online publication that's at Cara Woodhouse Collective. That's like kind of all lifestyle and they have some amazing writers and stuff and great stories and content there. And then my website is just carawoodhouse.com.
Well, we'll make sure we have all those tagged below. And Karen, I know you're beyond busy as we, throughout this
Of
conversation.
course,
So I really
so
appreciate you making
fun.
time to
I
come on and
loved it.
share
So thank you.
all your expertise with us.
Thank